All right, so now we're going to be going into one of the most critical aspects of medical device companies, scaling, building the company out, and that is actually raising capital and demystifying how hard and or maybe how easy, right, could be. So just you're just exhausted. So guys, we have some very powerful, esteemed panelists. Thank you guys for coming. I know you guys are super busy. Why don't you introduce yourselves, tell a little bit about your story and how you got to where you are.
Hi, everyone. I am excited to be here. I'm Cecilia Zapata Harms. I'm CEO of Palmetto Innovasphere, which is the Accelerator Institute here in the upstate of South Carolina. And I am excited to see all of you here, especially that I see a lot of women in the room.
Yes.
So, yay, yay. Background-wise, I have a little I'd say under 30 years of cancer research from Fred Hutchinson Cancer Research Center out of Seattle. Obviously, I am not a graduate of Clemson. I'm a graduate of University of Washington, and I'm also not a scientist. I have a master's in social cultural anthropology and a master's in health administration. But common ground with Clemson is the purple color. So there you go. Relocated here in 2021, and for a lot of different reasons. One of them was actually a company that decided to relocate in the upstate of South Carolina and fell in love with the area, saw the ecosystem, and I told my husband, guess what, we're just moving here. So we did. And looking at the ecosystem, not just in the life science space, but also in technology and medical device, I saw the opportunity to actually build Palmetto Innovasphere.
First of all, congratulations for being here today. I mean, I was just talking to Dr. Boyd, and I've got a few years on him, but there was nothing like this at Clemson when I was attending. And I'm an 85 graduate of Clemson. I majored in administrative management, played football, and coached for Clemson. And I was fortunate to be on the 81 national championship team. I volunteered for some organizations like the Spiro Foundation, as well as myself and Rich Davies, who is one of the guys who started the Shepherd Hotel. We started the first NIL program called Tiger Impact at Clemson a few years ago. And now you've got Clemson Ventures who have taken that over. Always been a very loyal Clemson follower as I've lived in various places of the country. But I really don't know why I'm here because I'm retired. But so I don't know what I could really add to this, but I'm going to try. Over the last 35 years, actually, I've been retired for 6 years, but for 35 years, I was in the aerospace and then the medical industry most recently. And I was the founder of Titan Spine, which was a spinal manufacturing device company based out of Wisconsin, just a little north of Milwaukee. Anybody from Wisconsin here? No? That's good, because everybody's moving down here. So, but while there, I was blessed to start some other companies prior to medical from ground zero, and they turned into multi-million-dollar companies, not because of me, but because of the team we had and we were able to put together. Same thing happened with Titan. Over our 14 years, we grew from 0 revenues to 75 million revenues to offices all over the country. We revolutionized the spinal industry, device industry, because of our nanotechnology. We were the first, and still I think we're still the first and only company that was able to manufacture consistently nano pits on titanium material, which is very important to cells and bone growth, natural bone growth without synthetic bone graft and some other things. We received what's called an ICD-10 code Section X code. We're favored by CMS a great deal because of what we did and cut down the inflammation for patients, and recovery time cut in half, and most importantly, cut opioid use down because of that. So we're very proud of, obviously, what we did. So much so that after 14 years, we went from zero to being purchased 6 years ago by Medtronic. And I've never said this in a public setting. I've said this to my friends one-on-one, and there's a reason I'm going to tell you. But we went from zero, and we were paid $225 million for our technology. And I'm not trying to impress you with that number, but impress upon you that if I can do it, honest to God, y'all could do it, okay? Because I barely got out of Clemson, and my professors will attest to that. I squeaked by. I'm not the brightest. Guaranteed I'm not the most natural business communicator in the world. I like to say ain't and you guys and can't and this and that. My grammar's not great. But what I found, and I think this is an important part, and I'll then shut up in a minute, is the passion that an entrepreneur must possess. You have to believe in helping people. Then you have to believe in a product, a service, something that you feel like you've been called upon from heaven to help create. And that's your purpose in life. And you have to have that inner will, that drive, that passion, because while your friends are, and there's nothing wrong with this, I'm talking about entrepreneurs, but on the other end, while your friends have got a nice salary job, desk job, maybe working for Medtronic or Stryker, have a new car and doing well, and they're out eating at all the nice places, you'll be home and working 16-hour days in a garage eating beans and weenies, and you won't have the money to even go out with them. And that's the sacrifice entrepreneurs have to make occasionally. And that'll lead right into some other things with bootstrapping.
I agree. So real quick, as you can see, we have some very, very qualified panelists for this raising money session. Raise of hands. Who has started a company in the past? I don't care if it's a lemonade stand. Okay. Who has ambitions to start a company in the future? All right. So almost the whole room, right? So when we're starting a company, there's a foundation that starts to build on those companies. And usually that foundation to get the company started is called bootstrapping. What exactly is bootstrapping, and demystify the term for the students?
That's pretty much how we funded our company, to be honest with you. That's why I think I can mention to you and talk to you like that. As far as the being a real entrepreneur, there's a lot of entrepreneurs who think they are, but they're not, because you're gonna be staring at the ceiling a lot of times at night, wondering what you're doing, and that's gonna have to keep you going. So bootstrapping is essentially self-funding yourself. So what we did at Titan was we took everything my partner and I had, we mortgaged everything, and we basically were able to have some cash, get a loan, and then we went out immediately after we went through a business plan and proved our concept and developed the product and so forth. We went out and then we tried to sell right off the bat, and then we used the sales proceeds to fund ourselves, fund it back. I used to kid people, we were the perfect 501c3, which we weren't, but we would take all of our monies at the end of every year and go back and buy inventory, or put it towards R&D, or put it towards our nanotechnology, or expand our offices and so forth. And then we'd reach in our pocket and put some more in. So we kept doubling down. And we did that. And there's a lot of ways you can bootstrap it. I mean, we eventually brought in friends and family, which was important to us, as well as, if we have a rich old uncle, that's always good too. But that's really how we got started. And then later on, we did bring in some private equity at the very end. So
Cecilia, can you tell us the difference between what is bootstrapping, what is pre-seed, and what is seed? Or is bootstrapping go in with pre-seed? What do you see it as?
Well, so I'm not going to add too much to what Kevin had said here, but bootstrapping is self-funding. One thing that I wanted to mention first, just to kind of stay within that topic, is that absolutely correct. If you are passionate about what you're developing and what company you're trying to start, finding that the why and the mission for that particular technology or product or drug discovery, whatever that may be, that actually resonates with everybody, with any investor that comes into the room with you and wants to know what you're talking about. That resonates with them, including your parents and your friends and your family. Now, the thing that I wanted to also say is that when you're bootstrapping, even though it is a friends and family investment to your technology, and you are just at that proof of concept stage, draw up a contract. Understand what that contract, a simplified contract, doesn't have to be, here's equity, here's whatever. That gets really, convoluted down the road. But draw up a contract and let them know that, you're serious about this and that you really want to make a go at it. And it shows them that you're passionate about what you're trying to do. So that's number one. On the pre-seed side, pre-seed actually, in some way, it sort of comes together with bootstrapping and pre-seed. Sometimes people say, we're pre-seed, but pre-seed is a little higher dollar than bootstrapping. So it could be in tens of thousands of dollars. It is also the opportunity to really prove your concept. So you have your bootstrapping is you're putting together your plan, you're putting together sort of like your idea for conceptual, proving that concept, the concept stage, and then where you're going to go to prove that concept. And by then, you may have already started it with a small a group of individuals, so somebody that may have been referred to you to talk to, like an orthopedic surgeon or what have you. But really the pre-seed stage is where you're going to get serious in proving that concept. In drug discovery, sometimes that means, all right, maybe we'll try out this technology with 1 to 2 patients or something like that. But that's a higher dollar. And I'm looking at David here because whenever you talk about patients and trying it out with patients, you got to talk regulatory and compliance. So that's very important to get the right expertise.
Love it. So there's a lot of disconnect, and I'm not going to be political, but the Y Combinator and the California folks and the West Coast folks really started this different types of what is a pre-seed and what is seed. Let's really focus just on medical devices. So I was always taught that when you're raising a seed in any type of medical devices, and again, I can only know my short neurosurgery and body's plumbing, is usually a pre-seed round of financing is around 1.5 to 1 or 2 million. A typical, then a seed round is around, you could be like around a 3 million target. Do you like when people have definitive numbers set to those targets for the raise amounts? And what's the advantages of that?
Well, we do, because there's actually a formula, especially in medical device. I mean, you have a stage where you've designed it already and you're ready to pretty much, really have that concept and you're moving forward. So, and you've already developed some sort of budget, and there's already plenty of examples out there that can actually give you why you need $1.5 million. But we always say, try to raise a little bit more. Because once you get to the point of, okay, now I need to get to this certain stage, you're going to need that little cushion along the way until you get to your bigger raise, which is your seed.
totally agree with what Cecilia is saying. We didn't go through basically we were the pre-seeders and everything. We started raising money, which is unique, and I could tell you the medical device industry especially, because it's very costly to get in. And, we didn't have to go through a PMA, which is a pre-market approval, as the FDA would put you through. We had predicate devices. In the early stages, we were kind of a Me Too device, so we could just use other devices to get clearance with the FDA until we started to apply our subtractive nano surface. So, but I would say that, off of the seeding, that, I mean, you really do have to try to go to family, friends, other people. I know some people are using crowdfunding, which is kind of new to me, to help seed that, where you can go out and you can get, and there's good and bad with it. You can go out and you can draw small amounts of money from a large pool of people. And it really doesn't take you much effort to set it up. It may cost you a few dollars to do a video and a quick business plan for them, slide deck. But that's pretty much, all.
So can I dig in just a little deeper to this, guys? Because this is what the students would probably want to know. When you're raising a pre-seed or bootstrapping, I kind of put those in together because the bootstrapping will convert into a pre-seed, right? We all know that. But when you're raising from friends and family, it can be a blessing or a challenge. And it can be very awkward if you don't hit milestones and you've taken money from Uncle Ben at Christmas dinner. So what is your guys' advice on raising money from friends and family? And maybe what is a better process or the process that you suggest for bootstrapping?
Well, we did take friends and family money, but it was towards the end after we had already been out in the field selling. And the way we approached it was, if we didn't ask them, they'd be mad because they say, hey, you've got a good company here, you're doing well, we want to be involved. What are you excluding us for? So we took kind of an opposite approach. But early on, it is, to your point, it could be, you could have some fun times at Christmas and Thanksgiving, and thank God we didn't have to go through that. So we didn't want to do that, honestly, until we knew that our product was accepted, it was selling and so forth. It made it harder. We had, again, mortgage everybody and all three of my boys, basically, to get to that point. So we intentionally waited a number of years, actually 9 years, until we opened up that door.
I don't know. I tend to not go to my family.
Agree.
Right?
I agree.
Because those Thanksgiving dinners can get really awkward. Again, the passion is very important, but understanding exactly what you're trying to develop and why you're developing it is key. Whenever, and there's this thing called FOMO, right? Fear of missing out kind of thing. Having a conversation with a family member, let's say, that has slightly deeper pockets, and it's a training ground for you to start pitching your product. And here's why you're doing it and why you think it's going to make a difference. This is one of the reasons why I say, if you're going to get money from your family and friends, draw up a simple contract. Understand that it may not work. You may have to pivot. You may have to drop whatever it is that you're doing, but you're passionate about it. And your intention is to take it to the next stage. And it just gives them that understanding. It becomes like a business transaction. I think it's very important to do it that way.
I agree. So
Say, off of that, that's a great point. What we did was we put together a private placement memorandum. We did this a couple times for mainly our family and friends. So it's a very formal document, costs a few dollars, and there's a lot of legalese and a lot of disclaimers in it. It's about that thick, and about that much of his disclaimers. And you would explain that to your family and friends and others that just wanted to participate. So it wasn't just focused on them, it was a little bit broader. And that helped a great deal because, they saw we disclosed everything to them, the good, bad, and the ugly. So they knew what they were getting into.
Also, I mentioned the FOMO situation, but also if you have a champion within your family and your friends, sometimes they can actually be the presenter of what you're trying to build as far as your technology and your company. So there'll be like lunches or dinners or cocktail parties or whatever it is, and then there's like a little presentation. And that champion, who is also an investor in your company, can then bring in the right people because they've already started talking to somebody else, some of their friends that said, hey, I'm investing in this particular technology or this company, you should too. And there's that.
Love that process. I'll give you my little learnings. So one of my first companies early on, I started a varicose vein clinic. I raised bootstrapping money, pre-seed money from friends and family. I'm not going to mention who. We ended up selling off those assets and not making a profit. So I never even got to pay my friends and family back. That became very awkward for a few years. I mean, it really was awkward, and I felt horrible, right? You feel bad about it. So I learned from some other mentors years on, and when we started Von Vascular, I wasn't going to do that. So our first investors, we really target our customers. So we said, hey, if we build this, would you buy this? And they're like, yes, of course. Would you invest in this? And they did. And so we started building a little momentum with that. And then that gave me the confidence to go to my friends and family back and say, hey, we already have this subset of future customers that are already investing in us. Now I think it's appropriate that I invite you if you want to join. So my advice from you guys is maybe not try to find some other outside family and friends investors first, because it does become awkward. Okay, that's just my little teaching. So we talked a lot about, or some of in the previous panels, there was talk about non-dilutional funding. What is the difference between dilutional and non-dilutional funding? Can you guys explain that to the students?
Thanks. Well, real simple is, I'm trying to put in real simple terms, is if uh, if I am a funder and I invest $1 million, okay, say it's a Series A round, then that means the equity that I purchased it at, the units of shares that I own now for that $1 million cannot be diluted. So, or the value cannot be diluted. Okay, it can if the company doesn't do well, but basically anybody coming in after that, I have the same exact percent of the company as I've always had. And that's pretty tricky. And a lot of people don't go that route, especially when it's, private equity, VC, certainly, and others. And you don't see that too much. At least I didn't. Maybe it's changed in the last 6 years, but that's how I think of it.
Yeah. So why don't you go into like more of like the governmental help?
No. So from non-dilutive are grants, whether it's SBIR, SCTR, NIH, foundations, special projects from special organizations, American Cancer Society, things like that. You can get that as a non-dilutive. That means that the value of your company, you're not giving up equity, and there's not they'll have they'll want a return on investment, of course, but it doesn't hit your valuation. So, and it's very specific to the project. So there's certain milestones, obviously, and you have to report that out and what have you. But it's really more on the grant side. Private equity is a different story. That's where you start. The more investors you have in the private side of things, then the more the equity of or the value of your company gets diluted. So each shareholder gets diluted, the more investors you bring in.
Love it. So non-dilutive funding is awesome. We all want that, right? So it doesn't hit your cap table. So you get to keep all the equity and use their non-dilutive funding, which usually comes from state or federal funding. Von Vascular, our company, is backed by the NIH. So I can speak very positive and negative about the sequence. It is a very frustrating process when you're dealing with the NIH. I do not recommend to any of my mentees, they can do it in the background, but do not make that be your primary source of funding. Like there's just no way you're going to do it. before you're even allowed to withdraw the money, you've been in that process for minimum of 18 months. Just letting you guys know from the start of the application. So it's harder to do and it's very competitive. Our PI of our project, I was on a recent call with the NIH. They said that we are down now to 6% approval rate. So there's only a 6% chance that you might get NIH funding, and it takes so much time to do the applications. So I don't know if it's a good use of time these days. I can only get that from my own experience.
I agree, Manning, because it does take a long time to write these grants. It takes a long time to go through the process of review and approvals. And by the time the cycle is longer. By the time you get the grant funding, you don't even know whether you can even use the funds. Yes, you can, of course, but you're already behind in what you're doing. So this is one of the reasons why we go to, at least from the ones that I've mentored, is like, okay, let's take a look at what the private sector looks like first to get your initial raise, whether it's pre-seed or bootstrap. And there are angel investors out there too, by the way. So do take advantage. And I think that the other couple of panels also mentioned leveraging networking. You want to start at this stage, early stage, to start talking to investors or someone who does invest. I sit on both sides of the house, and sometimes I negotiate with myself on these things, but it is important to start talking to some investors.
Okay, so that's a great point. Can I jump into this real quick? So again, I'm not talking about SC Bio or SCRA. We're talking about federal funding, the NIH. So we're not poo-pooing that. Take advantage of your state non-dilutive funding. Then these folks will be up here talking shortly. So I wanted to make sure we're very clear with that. So Cecilia, great point. Let's go into, so now we're raised money from our friends and family. We're going into the seed rounds and we're ready to pitch professional angel investors. What is an angel investor? How do you approach them? And then what is the difference between an angel investor and an angel group?
Well, first of all, angel investors are small dollar amount investments that goes into your company. However, don't think that small means not significant. It still can be significant. There are independent angel investors out there that are not part of a group. And again, they actually come to sessions or conferences or Next Gen Match Day, things like that. I was just there on Tuesday and I was doing that same thing, coming in as an independent angel investor. At minimum, you could probably get $25K from an angel investor. It's not, sometimes it's a little less than that, but for the most part, a good 20 to 25 is a good number for most of us. Angel investment groups. These are, I guess you would consider them more like their own independent funds.
Small-time VCs.
Small-time VCs, yes, exactly, VCs. And it's a group of angel investors that come together to build a small fund. Same thing, they have thesis, they look at, industries that they work with, whether they're going to go in medical device or med tech, and they focus on those areas. There are pitch presentations that happen. There are conferences that happen there. Sometimes they hold their own pitch presentations. In fact, I'm going to one in London soon. And that's an opportunity to actually be in front of these angel groups. Now, one thing I want to say, when you go in front of these professional groups, whether they're an independent angel investor or angel fund group, get the technical stuff as far as pitch presentations, a little mentoring, leveraging some experts before you go in front of them and practice. Because they are going to look at some of those things. You're going to need to answer some of the questions that they're going to ask you, and they're going to be pretty hard questions by then. And also some of the technical questions that might come up.
Yeah, and to that point, I'd just say rehearse, rehearse, rehearse over and over again, because they are going to question on every line item, especially if you are presenting financials, projections on a P&L or a balance sheet or whatever, cash flow. most of what you're going to be projecting is probably what we used to call guesstimations. With your best guess, you're taking all your experience and making sense out of what you can truly accomplish. And you really don't want to try to inflate it, because if they say yes, then they're going to hold your feet to the fire on it, and you're going to have to hit those goals. So make sure you're being as realistic as possible. Yeah, you have an answer for every little line item, how you came up with it. And that would be my advice. Now, on angels, they are great. I mean, and some will give you 25, some will give you more. It depends. They usually like to do like a convertible debt type of thing, where they're going to loan you some money to get you through to the next step, and that then can be converted into a small amount of equity. So it's kind of a win-win situation. And there's individuals out there that I call them angels, but there's really people, I guarantee, in your life who just want you to succeed. They love you. They want you to succeed. They'll do a lot of things for you besides just give you money, and help you in many, many ways. So yeah, definitely keep everybody in mind, and network.
So I'm just going to interject real quick. Cecilia talked earlier about making up your own contract, right? For when you're collecting money from your friends and family bootstrapping. Kevin just brought up two things, which is called a safe agreement. And then we also have a convertible note. I suggest, instead of just writing, going on and downloading just a contract, use a convertible note or a safe agreement. A lot of medical device VCs, once you get to that stage, prefer that you use a convertible note that will then convert into a priced round, which that's what the VCs will do. The VCs are not going to be investing in a convertible note once you get to that round, those type of levels. So if you're starting a company or looking at starting a company, start downloading those convertible notes or safe agreements. That's what you're going to raise your money on. That's the contract that you give mom and dad. You give me $100,000. Here's what this is going to be. And that is you're pretty much making your mom and dad a loan shark. They're loaning you money. And then when it converts, they're going to get a really nice discount on that price. I don't want to go down that. I think it's a little more advanced, but I just want to let you know how that's what I would do if I were you. Okay. We got about 15 minutes left. Is there any questions?
Yeah, we work with 150 companies every year in my business. And they're all, by and large, raising money. And whether or not you're in the friends, family, and fools area, or pre-seed area, seed area, round one, round two, doesn't matter. They all ask the same question: what do I get for my money? And then it raises issues about valuation and how you go about the business of valuating the company that you're starting or you're having or you're beginning to develop. Most people that go through that process get disappointed at what their valuation is and then how much they can raise. Can you speak to the dynamic of valuating companies, what it's worth, the pitfalls of doing that too early, too soon, too late, these sorts of things?
Yeah, there's a lot there. I know, to make it real simple, again, 6 years ago or so, in spine, a lot of companies were just interested in top line revenue. And what amazed me back in the, say, 2008 to 2015, where you can have a company that would be doing, say, $20 million in sales and losing $40 million on the bottom line, and then get paid a 10 multiple on top line. It's crazy. I mean, but that was the Wild West of spine. So when we did an evaluation, when we went to family and friends, this again, it's about 9 years in already. We had a good track record, so we can use some real numbers. We had a lot of IP around our nanotechnology and the way we manufactured things. So we would take that, and we took a small multiple. At that time, it was about 6 was the multiple for top line. We took 3. And then we valued our company off of our sales. So if our sales, say we're 20 million, we'd say, hey, someone's probably going to pay us 60 million minimum for it. And we would divide that by our number of shares that were out there. And that's how we came up with the value. And then what we would do is we would take that, and this is real simplistic what I'm saying, but then we'd essentially take that to an independent, someone who would independently, they do this for a profession and will evaluate everything. How much inventory do you have on the floor? How much of this? How much of that? It was funny. We used banks early on, community banks, and we graduated all the way up to Chase. And then it got to a point where they didn't want to fund us because, and I know I'm getting off on a tangent, but in the medical business, all of our inventory was consigned to over 2,000 hospitals throughout the United States. I mean, and it wasn't under our roof. And the banks couldn't understand, hey, it's not under your roof, so we can't, use that as an asset. It's got to be under your roof. They don't understand that the FDA requires us to know where every single device is at all times anywhere in the world. So actually, the medical business does a better job of keeping track of inventory than anybody else, but the banks don't recognize that. We had a titanium devices. They just want to melt it down and say, how much does titanium cost? It's crazy. So we couldn't really use the banks. We had to get someone who was independent but understood the med tech business. So
Yeah, there's a lot there. Early stage companies, valuations are always a little lower, right? I mean, we hear 8 to 10 million, maybe. One thing that I know, and I won't, add too much to what Kevin said, really is when you get to a certain valuation and then you're having a hard time raising, right? And you have to adjust. Don't adjust low. Don't devalue where you started. So where you started is where you start. But if you do have to adjust, don't get to the point of, oh, it's 10 million. I'm not having a hard time raising. Okay, fine. I'll value my company at 2. No, don't do that. But there are other ways to actually solve that problem. There are formulas out there, and again, it's really talking to the experts because each device is different. Surgical device, med tech, in digital health, which is also can be a medical device, is going to be valued at a different level.
Hi, I'm Alan Conger. I'm with Vessel Wave Technologies. I'm about Kevin's age, but not nearly as successful. But 2 recommendations I would make. Read the book Venture Deals by Brad Feld. It's the most comprehensive analysis of finance, strategy, and everything for early stage financing. And another resource that you can have for early stage documents is Cooley Go, COOLEYGO. What we have done in bootstrapping ours, I wasn't as fortunate as Kevin to have previous exits and a cash and things to mortgage. So we have done what Manning does. We go to the end customers. In my case, they're vascular surgeons. So if you look at my cap table, it's doctor this, doctor that, doctor the other, and we have one mid-level manager from a competitor. That does 2 things for us. It's experts looking over our shoulder every step of the way as we develop it. That's number 1. Number 2, when we get to the venture capital stage, the VCs look at it and they see, these are your customers, these are all experts, they're all on board. It's external validation. And Manning showed me his confidential board of directors, and VCs are going to have their minds blown when they see that. So there's a lot of complexity in these things. You tackle the topic of dilution. Dilution basically refers to if somebody buys into the company and they own 10% of the company. Well, in your next round of finance, someone else buys equity. So the whole company, you'll get a smaller percentage, but hopefully the company's growing, you get a bigger piece of the pie. And that's a real simplistic way to look at it. Debt does not dilute, equity does dilute. You were referring to an anti-dilution clause. So that's another special situation. Be aware that when you're talking with venture capitalists, you're swimming with sharks. So educate yourself first.
Don't dismiss non-dilutive grant funding, because if you've got a long-term 510K process, that could span 10 years. And $10,000 to $20,000 won't carry you 10 years. There's a great resource in South Carolina called 3-Phase at Sea. It goes through Commerce, it goes through SCRA, who I'm with, but they actually look for solicitations that match up with what your technology is doing, and they actually help you write the grant because it has to be in a certain format that the agency is looking for. They know all of that ins and outs. Take advantage of that. It's a free service. And you don't find that often, but it is critical to go. And right now, I'll admit, NIH, NSF are both up in the air. But the latest word this week is they are not going to be as drastically cut as what we first thought. And there are going to be certain states that will have advantages to get those grants. South Carolina is one of them because we have not been in the top tier of capturing them in the past. So don't dismiss grant funding because most of the companies that spin out of Clemson in the life sciences are supported by non-dilutive NIH or NSF grants along the way.
I want to say that's a great point. I mean, when we were in business, we didn't have a resource like that who would actually write it for you and help you. We were dependent on ourselves to do that. And my partner, he graduated from Wisconsin, so we know that Clemson's the Harvard of the South, and he wasn't as bright as me, and I can't do it. So that's really why we didn't go about it, because it is a very detailed, long process, and we just weren't skilled in that area and didn't know enough about it. But boy, if you get an organization that can help you do all that, that's the way to go.
Yeah. Hi, my name is Kelsey Schulenberg. I'm a PhD candidate in human-centered computing who's about to be on the job market. So graduating this semester. But I had a question. Research generally shows that only about 20% of venture capitalist funding goes to women-owned businesses. And there's a lot of speculation as to why that is. And I was just wondering if y'all had any insight or advice to give the women in the room when it comes to gathering and getting investors for their businesses.
Well, my wife says I have a lot of advice, but I'm not going to answer that question right now.
Well, the good news is that there are groups out there that are readily available for women entrepreneurs, women founders, to get funding. There are many here in South Carolina alone. And really, I will not say this strong enough. Find your mentors, find your advisory boards. There are women in the room that have the expertise already, that have already gone through a lot of these things. When you build and advisory boards are very important when you're building a company, and because that's where you get your key opinion leaders and what have you. For the women entrepreneurs and founders, get your advisory board in place. Now, I have been fortunate to actually have great male mentors as well. And so as you form your advisory boards, get in front of the male investor mentors also, because they have value in giving you the tips and techniques to actually go in front of some of these VCs that tend to not invest in women founded companies. Things are changing. When I first started this, there was none, zero. And we went to groups like Gates Foundation and what have you to get funding, and NIH and things like that. So now though, there are a lot more resources for you, and Launchpad has it. So take advantage of that.
So have anyone ever heard of FemTech? And that's FEM, FemTech? Okay, so that is very, very big, and it's growing. And that is basically female-founded medical device or technology companies that VCs and angel groups only specifically invest in FemTech. So I would obviously not be one of those people. So what I suggest you do is you go, I know them, like there's Swan Capital, Sabora Capital. I would go on GUST.com and type in femtech, and you will see a list of only companies that vest in female-run companies. There's also Dealum, DEALUM.com. That's the same one as well. So that being said, let's close. Is there any more questions?
Super quick comment, just from Delphine Dean, I'm the chair of bioengineering. It's good to have, whether you're a woman or man or whatever, it's good to have a very diverse advisory board to get different perspectives when you pitch, I think. And then to your point about grants and the 6% funding line, seeing as I've been on the other side of reviewing those grants, things like what Steve was mentioning, so many of the grants get thrown out because they're not written for the call. And if you take advantage of these programs, you're suddenly in a category where the funding rates are much better if you know how to write them. So I wouldn't get discouraged.
And let me just say this too. I wanted to go back to that point. I mean, and Manny, remind me. I mean, there are so many opportunities out there. When I was in aerospace field, when I was just learning right out of Clemson, my boss and the owner of the company I worked for, her name was Audrey Reynolds. And Audrey, even to this day, I learned so much from her. And we used to go in, and I was a salesman at that point. We'd go into Hughes Aircraft or Rockwell, McDonnell Douglas, some of these companies, and we had a huge advantage because we were female owned. And they did listen to us, and they had to give so much business to female-owned companies. So there's a lot of opportunity out there, and a lot of people don't realize that. And I was kind of stunned with 20%. We, in our company at Titan, our executive team was made up 65% female. And personally, I just, there's a lot of things that I think young ladies can offer companies that, male participants might not be able to, and vice versa. So
Patience might be one.
patience is a big one.
All right, guys, we got to wrap up. Hold on. Give me one sentence to tell the students that are trying to raise money for their company. Give me one sentence of advice or a word. Doesn't matter. One sentence or word for students that are trying to raise money for their new company.
Find your why, be passionate about it, and keep going. The right investor will get to you. You'll find them. They're there.
Hold on to your equity as long as you can.
Do it. All right, guys, give it up. Cecilia and Kevin.